Hello everyone, welcome back to Elements of Elder Scrolls, and in this last episode that I've planned anyway, we're going to focus on the balance of the different design-based aspects of the Elder Scrolls series. After that I'm going to go through a side element, of which I couldn't fit into any of these three major topics. So let's get started. An open-world RPG is a huge production and undertaking. Trust me, I know, I tried working on one for about 8 months and it never seemed to come out the way I wanted to express it. When making one of these beasts, you have to think methodically how you're going to balance these two things, the gameplay and the narrative. To have these two things be as perfect and awesome as they can be, you have to think about their balance. You can't have gameplay and narrative work against each other, like side quests that have no bearing on the dire events going on in the world or your character's own super objective. You also can't have these things thought of as two completely separate entities. Then you just get another Ubisoft open world filled with a deep and edgy storyline, but side quests that ask you to climb, puzzle your way up to towers, drive around collecting things, checklist hunt every animal in your book, and all that junk. In fact, I want to talk about this example a bit further. In these Ubisoft games, the way the narrative is conveyed over your playtime is comparable to, as Aaron at Signal puts it, a book with its pages all stuck together. You have to take your fingers, and you have to do all this careful shit to try and not rip the page, so you're sitting there for 2 hours trying to do this shit just so you can read up on the next story beat. In Ubisoft open worlds, they try to tell a story, but the simple fact is, you could compile all of its story and cutscenes into a movie with little to no problem. There's no blending of gameplay and story, it's just fight a bunch of dudes, then climb this thing, then give me a cutscene. Now fight more dudes, drive to a thing, and then give me a cutscene. Now compare this with the most well-known example I have, Skyrim. In Skyrim, most of the story that you're absorbing is through the world itself. And what key action are the players doing to absorb said story? That's right, its main gameplay loop, which is walking and exploring. You see what it did just there, right? That's something I like to call design harmony. And this is everywhere in the Elder Scrolls series. In Morrowind, if you really want to get your grips on the main plot, its careful melting pot of factions, guilds, and empires, and the threat lurking and growing in Red Mountain, you have to read a lot of books that all tell their individual story. These stories all add up to this one thing, this prophecy. Enter the Nerevarine. In Morrowind, the Ashlander groups all agree that one day a prisoner would be born, to uncertain parents who would be ignorant to the role that he would end up playing in that nation's history. This prisoner would be the reincarnation of Indoril Nerevar, a Dunmer general who swore to the Ashlanders that he would return in another form, to rid Morrowind of foreign invaders, and cast down the false gods. The invaders here being the Imperials, and the false gods being the Tribunal. This idea is argued over between the Ashlanders and the Tribunal Temple themselves. You read about these conflicts of ideas, and then you start reading about the accounts of the Nerevarine. You read about the prophecy passed by mouth by the Ashlanders. Soon, without even realizing it, you end up fulfilling all of these prophecy steps within your own gameplay, up to the final boss himself, Dagoth, leader of the Lost Sixth House. You know that within the Nerevarine prophecy, in order for the supposed incarnate to be the real reincarnation of Indoril, the evil threat must be brought down. This evil threat being Dagoth. If this task is not completed, you are not the Nerevarine. Oh, look at you now, you just beat Dagoth, and now comes a whole other layer of understanding of what you really did. You didn't just beat the final boss of them all, the biggest, baddest, highest stats on any creature you've ever faced. You just proved yourself to be the real, true incarnate. You think to yourself, what does this mean? You think of all those books you read because I just told you to. You think of the times you juggled the question, is the incarnate really a thing, in your mind? And you think of who was really right. You know now. The Ashlanders. And the false gods. It's all very real. This, as I've described, is the blending that I'm talking about. A simple gameplay design that's been troped and reused for decades, this idea of a final boss, all of a sudden added a whole other layer to the narrative side of the game, and opened up a possible new way of thinking about the role of Morrowind to the player, depending on which side of the argument he was on. It's possibly the best story told in any type of medium, of the whole prophecy/destiny trope that the player character is destined to do something. You don't really ever get that in any other piece of fiction, not that I know of. It's just another element of what makes these games really, truly special. I hope that this trend continues through the series' next entry, that has been confirmed to be conceptualized. We'll have to wait and see. Until then, let's get to the honorable mention, an element that I couldn't fit into a video on its own. Everywhere I go on the internet to talk Elder Scrolls with anyone, they often mention how these are the best role-playing games ever and how Skyrim fucked it all up because the dialogue was crap and there weren't as many spells and you couldn't pick your attributes and... is this what role-playing is now? First, I don't know if you realize this, but every Elder Scrolls game up until Skyrim used a topic-based dialogue system. Arena allowed you to ask people for directions, Daggerfall asked you to ask for directions, but this time allowed you to choose your tone. Morrowind gave you a bajillion topics to discuss with NPCs, but most responses were copy-paste. Also, they wouldn't talk to you unless you had a favorable disposition with them. Oblivion's conversations were just like Morrowind's, but this time everything was voice-acted, and there were fewer topics to talk about, and there was a shitty disposition minigame that I still don't quite understand today. But I'm not saying Skyrim's dialogue's any better. I can't go an hour without having a conversation with someone that just seems like a straight line, response after response, with very little of my actual input going into it, very little opportunity to express myself. I don't have a problem with it, though. Elder Scrolls has never offered top-of-the-line conversations with people. In fact, in any future Elder Scrolls game they do, I want a topic system back. That way, I feel like I'm making more choices in what I actually discuss. I feel like my speechcraft is being used when I talk to people in an opposing faction, and I feel as though I get to, in my mind, choose how I'm actually asking these questions for, role-playing reasons. Now, in another sense, that being what I like to call classic D&D role-playing, in which it's not about the player's story so much as the character's story, I find to be false to the Elder Scrolls as well. That's something that belongs to Dragon Age. It's always been about pleasing the mind and offering a grand adventure to player 1. The character is just the portal to that adventure. Most of your adventuring does not follow a quest line or what the character has to do to progress the storyline. Most of the adventuring is fueled by the player asking him/herself, what do I want to do right now? And then there's the role-playing in the choose-your-own-adventure sense, where every decision is supposed to affect the world. While I would like this, I myself have to admit that Elder Scrolls has never really had this either. Very little decisions in Morrowind, Oblivion, or Skyrim ever really affected the world in any great significance. I will say, though, that after the main quest is completed, I would like some gameplay aspects to change. For example, when you kill Dagoth in Morrowind, the Blight is destroyed, a whole weather system is knocked out of the weather cycle, and people talk to you differently. In contrast, in Skyrim, when you kill Alduin, you will return to Skyrim and find that dragons are still flying around, and people, knowing that you're the person who literally just saved everyone, will still taunt you and talk down to you as they did before. I think that role-playing should be another focus of the next game, but not in any of these three senses. I feel that the role-playing should align to the player agency that I discussed in the first video. For example, in Morrowind, there are 3 great houses you can join with their own agendas and ideologies that the player could choose from, and many guilds that could align with the character's mechanical or build side. This way, the player feels as though he can create many characters with the many ideas of their own, who all have their own vision of how the world should be run. If I think of a character that wants to go around and gain power and influence throughout the world by assassinating big names, usurping thrones, and shitting all over political figures, then I'm going to subconsciously roleplay that way. I'll sit him up in the Telvanni Towers, he'll assassinate the leader of the Tribunal Temple and attempt to destroy it from the inside. He'll join the Morag Tong to get some coin out of it too. The Mages Guild could also help him in increasing his concentration and make bigger, more devastating spells. This is role-playing in the classic Elder Scrolls sense, and I hope that through all of the complaints they've gotten on Fallout 4, they do not forget this. Because forgetting this, or any of the things that I've discussed in these videos, could be more devastating to the series than any minor mistake they made in a Fallout 3 sequel. I hope you all enjoyed this, and I want to extend my thanks to everyone who watched it, and for the staff at Sugarbombed for allowing me to share it with you all. In fact, I can't thank them enough. And I know you guys see me give Bethesda lots of shit for Skyrim or Fallout 4 or whatever, but I feel that I need to thank just one more thing, the reason you're all watching this right now. Thank you all for watching.